Number 1.
Fledderman was last seen at the Myakka City Bar and Grill in Myakka, Florida early on the morning of on August 17, 1996. At 6 p.m. the body of her boyfriend of 8 years, Jefferson Lowry Blanton, was found at the home she shared with Fledderman in the 37,000 block of 6B Road. He'd been shot to death. The murder weapon was never found. A photograph of Blanton is posted with this case summary. There were no indications of a struggle inside the residence, the doors were locked, nothing was missing, and Fledderman and Blanton's pickup trucks were parked nearby. There was no sign of Fledderman, and she has never been heard from again. She had left her 4-year-old son with her sister before her disappearance. For years, Fledderman was the prime suspect in Blanton's murder and was considered as a fugitive. The police tried to get a warrant for her arrest for murder, but there was insufficient evidence, so instead they got a warrant on the charge of deserting her child. Fledderman and Blanton had a troubled relationship, and police were called to their home in response to domestic disturbances several times. Both of them drank to excess. In one incident, Fledderman allegedly shot out Blanton's truck tires during an argument. Blanton was once arrested for assaulting Fledderman, but formal charges were never filed against him. Fledderman obtained a restraining order against him in 1993, saying he'd threatened her, but the couple reconciled and the restraining order was dismissed. Investigators are now looking into the theory that Fledderman was innocent of Blanton's murder and may have met with foul play herself. She had a stable job as a technician at -3 Lira Aviation Recorders in 1996 and was a good mother, and it's uncharacteristic of her to be out of touch with her family. It was in response to her family's concern that the police went to the couple's home and found Blanton's body in the hallway. Her loved ones stated she would have never abandoned her son. Larry James Parks was at the same bar as Fledderman and Blanton on August 17. In 2002, Marks pleaded guilty to 3 counts of murder in connection with a 1999 triple homicide. He killed a woman and her 2 young daughters. His fingerprint was found inside Fledderman's pickup truck. Authorities are investigating Parks as a possible suspect in Blanton's murder and Fledderman's disappearance, but no charges have been filed against him. Fledderman's family had her declared legally dead in 2001. She is still considered a possible suspect in Blanton's murder. Her disappearance remains unsolved.
Number 2.
Keith was last seen while on his way home from his girlfriend's house in Cocoa Beach, Florida on April 28, 1977. His parents had dropped him off at the girlfriend's residence, north of his own, after school, and he was supposed to be back home for dinner. He left the residence with his girlfriend, and they rode on her bicycle to the end of Osceola Street at State Road, A1A. Keith got off and said he was going to hitchhike the rest of the way home, which was a common practice by Cocoa Beach residents at the time. When she found he was going to hitchhike, Keith's girlfriend's mother went back out to get him so she could take him home herself. By the time she arrived at the spot where his girlfriend had left him, though, he was gone. He never arrived home and has never been seen or heard from again. John Rodney McRae is the prime and only suspect in Keith's case. A photograph of him is posted with this case summary. McRae murdered and dismembered an 8-year-old Michigan boy in the 1950s when he was only 16. He served 20 years in prison for the crime. From 1976 to 1980, he worked as a guard at the Brevard Correctional Institution in Florida. The institution houses mostly teenagers. While McRae was working there, 3 local boys disappeared. One of them was a 20-year-old inmate, Charles Collingwood, who escaped from the prison shortly after allegations were made that he had an inappropriate relationship with McRae. McRae is considered a suspect in that case and also in the 1979 disappearance of 12-year-old Kipling Hess, an acquaintance of McRae. Neither of the boys were ever found. Police say Keith's disappearance fits the profile of McRae's crimes, and McRae himself admitted that he liked to watch young boys at Cocoa Beach. Keith frequently surfed at that location. McRae was convicted of the 1987 murder of a 14-year-old boy, Randy Ray Laufer. His conviction was later overturned on appeal, but he was convicted again in May 2005 and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 70 years old and wheelchair-bound at the time of the retrial, he was found in his cell only 2 weeks later, dead of intestinal ulcers and gastrointestinal bleeding. Investigators strongly believe that McRae committed more murders than he was convicted of, including the murders of Kipling, Keith and Collingwood. They even offered him immunity from prosecution if he would reveal where the boys' bodies were, but he always maintained his innocence. His wife, however, stated he had admitted the Hess and Collingwood murders to her. Keith enjoyed rock music, biking and surfing, and frequented the Cocoa Beach Pier in 1977. He is the youngest of 3 sons. He attended Roosevelt Middle School and was also going to counseling at Alternatives, a drug therapy center. His parents made him go after they caught him with marijuana. His mother and brothers still live in the Cocoa Beach area and are still looking for him. His father has since died. Some have criticized the investigation into his disappearance, saying police were lax in following up leads and conducted only a perfunctory search for Keith. The girl who last saw him was interviewed only once, in 1993. Keith's case remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Francique was last known to be at the house she shares with her parents in the 11,900 block of Old Tuscany Place at the Colony Lakes Estates subdivision in Newport Richey, Florida. When her parents went to bed at 11 p.m., Francique was standing on the front porch talking on the phone and smoking a cigarette. The next morning, her parents realized she was missing. Her car and almost all her personal belongings were left behind, including her clothes, makeup, wallet, credit cards, driver's license and pocketbook. Her cigarettes, house keys and Nissan car keys on an animal print keychain, and her pink cellular phone disappeared with her. There were no indications of a break-in. An extensive search of the area turned up fresh tire tracks at a shallow, swampy pond at the entrance to the subdivision. Searchers also found a packet of cigarettes which were Francique's preferred brand, but it hasn't been confirmed that they belonged to her. There was no sign of Francique and no evidence of foul play in the neighborhood. Francique left behind her young daughter, who is now in the care of her estranged husband. She is described as a devoted mother who wouldn't have willingly abandoned the child. Francique worked odd jobs cleaning houses at the time of her disappearance. Her disappearance is considered suspicious and her case remains unsolved.
Number 4.
Diane T. Francis was anything but ordinary. In fact, the word firecracker comes to mind when you speak to her daughter Sherry about her mother. As Sherry shares the memories she has of her mother, sister and the crazy characters her mother's addiction brought in and out of their lives, her heart still warms at the memory of her mother's smile. She was just a very funny person is what Sherry remembers most about her mom before her and her sister were taken by the state. Diane's addiction was taking over her ability to make the best parenting choices, and the loss of her children to the system was so hard for her to bear. The police were called shortly after to the home of one of the 2 men she was dating at the time, John Boggs, where an officer interviewed Diane and notated she was feeling suicidal after losing custody of her children. In 2005, Diane is off the map, no sight of her at any of her usual hangouts, which were well documented due to her many run-ins with local police. Diane had an alias which she had been arrested under many times as well, Kimberly T. Foreman. Arrests under Diane and Kimmy suddenly stop with a trespassing charge 11/27/2005 being the last recorded police interaction with Diane. Diane seemed to vanish into thin air until she made a phone call in 2006 to her father seeking financial assistance. Diane said she wasn't doing well and was very sick. That's the last anyone has ever heard from her. Both men Diane was romantically involved with at the time of her disappearance maintain they don't know where she is. Neither of these men ever reported her missing until one day after 12 years of Diane missing from his life, John Boggs randomly calls the local police department to officially report Diane missing since 2005. Why did Boggs call 12 years after Diane went missing? Why was Boggs' neighbor and good friend reported missing just days before he called in to report Diane missing? Why wasn't Diane's family out looking for her while her children were in and out of foster care? Why is Sherry the only one looking for her mother? Did Diane decide to vanish on her own, wanting to stay hidden? Did she fall into danger on the streets, or did her health fail her? Sherry and her sister deserve the answers.
Number 5.
Frazier was last seen leaving the Centerfold Lounge in the vicinity of Phillips Highway and Emerson Street in Jacksonville, Florida on July 10, 2015. He has never been heard from again. Investigators believe he was murdered, and the prime suspect in his presumed death is Prentice Ration Hare. A photo of Hare is posted with this case summary. In 2018, Hare pleaded guilty to aggravated murder in the death of Tiffany Chambers, a Jacksonville resident who was killed in Springfield, Ohio in July 2015. He admitted he killed Chambers because she had witnessed Frazier's murder, and he wanted to silence her. Hare's girlfriend, Hannah Whitman, pleaded guilty to evidence tampering and gross abuse of a corpse. She helped dispose of Chambers' body. Her remains were not found until May 2016. By then, Hare was already serving 26 years to life in prison for the December 2015 murder of a Springfield man, Deshaun Lumford, whom he strangled in an argument over $70 worth of drugs. Hare is also a person of interest in 4 other homicides in the Springfield area. All the victims were killed within 2 years of each other, and all were women linked to prostitution and drug use. No one has been charged in connection with Frazier's presumed murder, and his body has not been found, but foul play is suspected in his case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 6.
Fredrick was last seen at a residence in the Seminole Heights neighborhood of Tampa, Florida at 9:30 p.m. on June 3, 1994. After her disappearance, the house was found locked with the outside light on and Fredrick's school textbooks on the table. Her purse and a gun were missing from the house, but she left behind her burgundy Pontiac Subaru station wagon. Her husband and young son were camping in the western United States on the day she vanished. Nothing amiss was found at the Fredrick residence after she disappeared, and there has been no activity on her credit cards or withdrawals from her bank account since June 1994. Fredrick was last seen in the company of Louis Joseph Lava III, who is described as a Caucasian male and 40 years old at the time of Fredrick's disappearance. He was a co-worker. Lava's date of birth is July 1, 1953. He was located after she vanished and interviewed by police, but didn't provide any information as to what happened to her. Fredrick was an employee of the Florida Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services at the time of her disappearance, working as a child advocate, and had taken a leave of absence to enroll in law school at Stetson University. She enjoyed her work at the DHRS and was looking forward to becoming a lawyer. She was close to her family and kept in regular contact with them, and it's uncharacteristic of her to leave without warning or abandon her son. Foul play is suspected in Fredrick's disappearance, as there is no indication that she planned to leave of her own accord. Her case is unsolved.